These are 10 settings that'll make you a pro in Black Ops 7, starting off with sensitivity. As you guys know, Black Ops 7 came out with new aim assist nerfs that drastically change aim assist, where up to 10 meters, you technically lose aim assist. Now, you don't actually lose aim assist, but the rotational aim assist is a lot worse. You don't have it on the left stick, and you need to move the right stick in order to get the aim assist. Now, because of this, I would highly recommend trying out 2 different settings for your sensitivities. The first one is lowering your vertical or horizontal sensitivity, so you have more control of your thumbstick. And when you are getting into these close range fights, you have to move your right thumbstick a lot more in order to get the aim assist. Now, if you don't want to bring down your vertical or horizontal sensitivity, I would highly recommend to bring down your ADS sensitivity multiplier. This value is set to 1, and if you bring it lower to like 0.9, 0.8, basically every time you aim in, your screen now moves slower. It's as if you are now on a lower sensitivity. Again, in these close range fights, when you're aiming in, this could help you activate the right stick more, aka activating more aim assists. Now, regardless of changing your sensitivities, I would highly recommend to hop in a private match lobby and shoot bots so you can practice. And this actually brings us to our second setting that I want to talk about, and that's actually turning off aim assists. Now, I specifically mean turn off aim assist just when you're practicing against bots. And then when you actually play matches, you play ranked, you can then switch on your aim assist. But I highly believe that because of this aim assist nerf, if you guys start practicing shooting bots with no aim assist, this will drastically increase your aim, movement, and overall skill. Now, this practice does require time and quality reps, which if you need help making sure you utilize all of your time wisely, I'd highly recommend checking out my coaching in the description below. In this coaching, we would go over your gameplay and learn what your strengths and weaknesses are. We would also hop into a 1v1 and really focus on mastering the gunfights. And of course, we will also learn how to understand this game at a professional level. All right, let's move on to some movement settings that will drastically help you start playing like a pro player. And I want to start off with grounded mantle. This little bugger is so freaking hard to find in the settings. It's all the way at the bottom, and you have to also go into a completely different tab just to turn this setting off. But if you're wondering what grounded mantle is, basically every time you jump into the air, if there's a desk, a chair, a wall next to you, your character just automatically mantles without you wanting to mantle. This has caused so many people to lose gunfights, especially in heat of the moment fights where you can literally win the round or win the game. Now that we're done talking about aiming and movement, I really want to focus on graphics because there's so many people running the wrong graphics. That's just making their lives drastically harder. The first one is for my PC people, and that is understanding the difference between NVIDIA Reflex On and On Plus Boost. Now, I'll keep it short and sweet for you, but basically, if you have a very good CPU and not the best GPU, right? Your CPU is better than your GPU, you would want to have the setting set to on. However, if your GPU is better than your CPU, you would actually want to put this to On Plus Boost. Now, this setting is decreasing the input delay between your actions and what's happening on the game, which is extremely important in a game of milliseconds. Another setting that pros use and you probably had no clue about is actually in your interface, and that's going to be Gameplay HUD Safe Area. You're going to click on the safe area and bring these arrows to the center of your screen, as close as it'll let you go. Now, what this does is it brings your minimap closer to the center of your screen so it's easier to see this. Now, the cool thing about multiplayer HUD presets is there's actually a few settings or presets that you may enjoy using, such as we have this portrait preset where the minimap is actually in the middle of your screen in the bottom left of your crosshair. So you're actually going to be able to be looking at your minimap while you're shooting enemies. Of course, if this is a little too close and a little bit too then you could go over to the drone, where now the minimap is at the top center of your screen. So you just got to look up to see the red dots. But just looking at this minimap is so freaking important. Now, staying in graphics, there's 3 settings that if you don't have turned off, you are putting yourself in a massive disadvantage. And these 3 settings are going to be your depth of field, your camera shake, and your world and weapon motion blur. Having weapon and motion blur turned off, your game is just gonna look so much more clear. You're gonna be able to see enemies out in the distance. Now with this camera shake setting, every single time that you get hit by a grenade or if you jump off of a roof, your screen is shaking 100%. However, if we bring this down to 50%, every single time you're jumping off a building, getting hit by a grenade, your screen is now shaking half as much. And last but not least, depth of field. Every time you aim in, your screen on the outside gets blurred. If you just turn this setting off, now that blur does not exist, so you can still see other enemies out in the distance. So these are all the in-game settings that you can change that will drastically increase your gameplay and help you become a pro player. However, there's two other settings that are very important, and it's actually outside of the game. Now, hopping over to the desktop, we're gonna change your config player files, which will give you about a 40 FPS boost if you're playing on PC. Again, if you are trying to go pro, you want every advantage possible. So starting off, you're gonna click on your file, and then you're gonna drop down to this PC. You're gonna then type in the top right corner, Activision, and you're gonna wait a little bit for it to find the file. After about a minute, we now have these two Activision files, and you would wanna double click on the second option, the one below. Once you double click it, click on Call of Duty, and then click on Players, and then these three text files that you see right here, you can delete them. If you played the Black Ops 7 beta, you'll actually have 6 of these, so you can just delete all of them. And once you delete them, you're gonna click on the pinned comment down below that will take you to Merc Tweaks. Merc Tweaks is a professional PC optimizer, extremely reliable to make sure your system is working well, and you're gonna download these files right here. So we click on these files. We now in the left can click download all files. Once that downloads, we're gonna put this to the side, and then we're gonna go ahead and bring up a new file explorer, go to our downloads, double click on this right here, and then you're gonna go ahead, drag these and copy and paste them over here into the other folder. When I did this, I went from roughly around 130 to 140 FPS all the way up to 180 and 190 FPS. Again, just having more FPS, less input delay, just takes you closer to reaching that professional level. Which one last setting that we're gonna talk about, which every pro player does, is overclocking their controller on PC. Again, if you go to the comment section down below, I have this website right here, battlebeaver.com, and this is a controller website that have a overclocking program. When you scroll down, it's right here, step-by-step guide. You're gonna click download the file. Once you download the file and extract it, you're gonna go ahead, open it up, go to driver, go to setup, you're gonna double click yes. And now what we can do is we're gonna go ahead in the top left corner, click mice and put it to all. And when you put it to all, you're gonna look for your controller here. You can already read it right here, DualSense Edge controller wireless. But if you can't find it, then you can simply just unplug your controller. It will disappear, and then when you plug it back in, it will reappear. Boom. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna click on this controller, USB composite device, and you're going to install service. You're gonna click install service first. Once you click install service, you're gonna click open, and then what you can do is you can grab this number, it's gonna be set to default, and you can put it to 8,000. If you're playing on a PS4 controller, you're gonna set it to 1,000. Once you have it set to 1,000 or 8,000, you're gonna now install the service again, and then you're gonna click filter on device. You're gonna click install service again, and now to double check to make sure it worked, you're gonna go ahead and unplug your controller one last time. And when you plug it back in, ideally what happens is it pops right back up, showing that your controller is overclocked. Those were 10 specific settings that will help you start playing like a pro player. But now for the rest of the video, I'm gonna share my personal settings, going over different sensitivities, going over my dead zones. So if you wanna continue watching this video, please feel free to do that. And after we go over these settings, I will also share with you my gameplay using these settings and giving you my mindset going into the new year. Starting with the PS5, if you have a monitor that gives you 120 Hz refresh rate, make sure the setting is set to on. Not only that, but if you go to your PlayStation settings in the top right and you go down to screen and video, when you scroll down to video output, I would highly recommend to turn off HDR. Now, HDR does make the game beautiful, don't get me wrong, But if we're playing competitive Call of Duty, we want to turn this off just so we can see everything a lot clearer and we don't have extra shadows or dark corners making us miss where enemies are. Speaking of really dark corners, I would highly recommend bringing up this gamma and brightness just a little bit, just so if players are camping in a corner, you will be able to see them. And I'd recommend turning off eco mode preset just to make sure we are using our PS5 to the fullest advantage. I would highly recommend making sure your PS5 is in a good spot with a lot of airflow, because if you do have it in like a little cubby, it could overheat. We're now in the quality tab, and like I said, if you don't have world motion blur, weapon motion blur, and depth of field turned off, you are drastically putting yourself in a disadvantage. I would then recommend turning on Fidelity FX Cast and setting the strength to 100 or 90. For on-demand texture streaming, set this to optimize with your allocated cache size set to small, download limits on, and have those download limits set to 1 GB. Now we're in the view tab, and honestly, your field of view really is preference, up to you. There's some players that still prefer playing on 80 FOV like the classic Call of Duties. I'd highly recommend trying 90 or 100 just so you can have a little bit more like seeing space, especially in like corridors or in stairwells. But I personally like 120 just because it gives me more dope. I feel faster on the map, and that's what I like. Now, ADS field of view should be set to affected, so every time you aim in, your screen is not zooming in. Your weapon field of view should be set to wide just so you can see more of your screen and not more of your gun. And then as we scroll down, first person camera movement, make sure this is set to 50%. So when a grenade explodes next to you, your screen only shakes half as much. Now, PS5 audio honestly isn't that bad. I would recommend making sure master gain volume set to 100, effects volume set to 100, and then these three other settings, you can either turn these off or bring them down to like 20, 60, wherever you want to bring them down to. But specifically the audio mix. Now, everyone's ears are different, so I would highly recommend going through these and seeing what works best for you. For me, Treyarch mix does work best. I can hear people in every direction, and I feel like I can hear those very subtle movements. But other people have recommended trying out bass boost, bass cut, sucker punch, and even home theater. When you scroll down, you do have asymmetrical hearing compensation, which means you could drastically change the values in your game. But again, everyone's hearing is different. So if you do go through these settings, you would have to go through these one by one and find that sweet spot for you. For me, like I said, I can already hear people, and because I play ranked play or competitive, we actually run ninja, so most of the time you don't even hear the enemies. In these global interface settings, you can turn off tutorials. For telemetry, if you do want to turn these on, you could have server loss and packet loss. As we scroll over to readability, I'd highly recommend going down to color customization. Again, just how everyone hears differently, everyone sees things differently, so make sure you change these colors to what works best for you. Highly recommend make sure you know the difference between neutral and contested zones, and then of course know the difference between the enemy and your team. But I found that using color filter 2 set to both, and then world and interface color intensity set to 100, these colors pop more and it's easier to see these enemies. As we switch over to the gameplay HUD, I've already said it before, but there's a lot of different layouts you can have, such as having the portrait or the drone. This puts the minimap in the center of your screen, and this will help you gather information a lot easier. Of course, if you already have the skill built of looking at your minimap in the top left, you can stick with classic or standard. Of course, they do have some themes, so I'm assuming that, you know, the more we play this game, they're probably going to release bundles to download these. Now, we actually have a lot of customization for the HUD, so I've heard a lot of people complain about health bars. If you don't like the health bars, you can easily turn them off right here. However, I do believe that if you know an enemy is one shot, that's some very important info. You should keep that on. Again, for safe area, I highly recommend bringing these arrows to the center of your screen so you can see your minimap easier. And as we scroll down, make sure this radar is set to off. If you have this on, you are making your minimap useless. It's pointless to have a minimap if you have the setting on. So just make sure this is turned off. As we scroll down, there's a lot more customizable settings for just your crosshair. I'd highly recommend obviously having your crosshair lines and crosshair dot on. The things I would change though is if you don't like your crosshairs constantly like going in and out as you're running or shooting, you can switch this to off. Then for crosshair dot, if you like it where you have a dot on the center of your screen the entire time you're playing, you can set this to static, which means every time you're running, every time you're sliding, if you're, I believe even if you're inspecting your weapon, you still have the center dot on. Now you can totally change your color to something that pops more like a hot pink or a green. Now for anyone that does get motion sick, all the way down here in the bottom, advanced motion control, you do have settings to help you with motion sickness. Me personally, I don't struggle with this, so I'm not sure what the best settings are. Sorry, but I hope this does help you. We are finally in the highly anticipated PC settings, and I will quickly just let you know that these interface and audio settings are the exact same from the PS5 settings. So if you want to quickly rewatch that, you can absolutely do it. But basically, again, I have my HUD bounds set to as low as possible. My multiplayer HUD preset, I have it set to standard, and then radar, make sure this is always set to off. Do not have this on. Do not. But let's actually get into these graphics settings. So on this display tab, everything should be default. However, if your display mode is set to full screen borderless, I would highly recommend full screen exclusive. You get an extra maybe 10, 15 FPS. And then as we scroll down, we have the NVIDIA Reflex low latency. Like I said, I personally have a very good GPU, but not a good CPU. So I'm playing on plus boost. However, if you have a very good CPU and not a good GPU, you should put this on to on. Just set it to on. So again, if you have a good CPU, on, good GPU, on plus boost. As we scroll down, I turn off VSync, and then for custom frame rate limit, you could have this set to unlimited, but I've been told that it's best to have the frame rate set to 300, and then your menu custom frame rate should be set to 60, just so you're giving your GPU and your PC a break between matches. As we scroll all the way down, again, if your monitor does have HDR, I recommend turning this off. In this quality tab, I do have my render resolution set to 1920 by 1080, just so I get more FPS when I'm playing competitive matches. But of course, if I'm ever playing the campaign or if I'm playing, a story mode game, I got the 4K monitor for a reason. I'm gonna be on 4K, but just not for Call of Duty. As we scroll down, upscaling should be on Fidelity FX Cast set to 100. I highly recommend making sure these frame generations are all turned off. They just increase more input delay. As we scroll down through the rest of these settings, they're pretty much all gonna be set to low or off. And the reason why is because I want as many frames as possible. The texture resolution, if you don't like very low quality, you can switch it to low, and you're only going to lose maybe about 10, 15 frames, so it's not that big of a deal. Again, I'm just a freak. I want those frames. As we scroll down, on-demand texture streaming set to minimal, cache size 16, download limits 1 GB. And then as we continue scrolling down, like I said, everything else is set to low, 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 very low, or off. In the view tab, again, I like playing on 120 just because I feel a little bit faster, but there are some angles where it's hard to see enemies, so I do drop this down to 115. I plan to play on this throughout the rest of the year compared to Black Ops 6, which in Black Ops 6, I played on 103. Again, ADS field of view affected, weapon field of view wide, and then as we scroll down, world, weapon, motion blur, both turned off, first-person camera movement set to 50%. And those are the graphic settings. Now, last but definitely not least, let's go over these controller settings. So for me personally, I'm still playing on 1.65. Again, because of the nerf to aim assist, I feel that playing on a lower sensitivity forces me to use my right thumb a lot more during aiming. And if you're using that right thumb to aim, you are activating your aim assist. For my button layout, I do play on tactical flipped, so I use my right thumbstick to slide everywhere. And then I do have my swap button L1, R1 with L2 and R2, just because I do play partial claw, which means I use my pointer finger for my triangle and my square. And I can also use it for my R1 to shoot. We then have controller vibration off, trigger effect off, and then my dead zone inputs. My left stick minimum is set to 0. I've seen some people say that this could cause some aim assist issues, so it's best to have it set to 1. I really haven't found those issues, so I still have it set to 0. My left stick max is set to 75, just so you have less input delay when trying to go, 100% with your movement. My right thumbstick, I have the dead zone set to 3, and then my right stick max 99. At the start of this video, we went heavily in depth for this aiming tab, but again, for the sensitivity multiplier, I'd highly recommend trying out your ADS sensitivity to be less than 1, and if you make this less than 1, every time you aim in, your sensitivity is now slower. Therefore, you need to move your right stick more, and if you're moving your right stick more, you should have more aim assist. Again, I'd highly recommend just hopping into a match and trying this out, seeing what you like or what you don't like. And for me personally, I keep this on 1.0 just because I've already brought down my horizontal and vertical sensitivity lower. When you click on this aiming advanced settings, make sure ADS sensitivity transition timing is set to instant. And what this does is the second that you click aim in, you now instantly go down to a lower sensitivity. And because you're on a lower sensitivity, it's forcing you to use your right thumbstick more, again, hopefully getting more aim assist. I really haven't tested the difference between standard, linear, or dynamic in this game yet, but I would say, stick with dynamic for now, but the more we play this game, I'm gonna try out linear and see if this is a better option since we do have a nerf to aim assist. And if you play Warzone and you have several different scopes that you use, you can totally turn on this custom sensitivity per zoom. Once again, when you aim in, it will feel like you have a lower sensitivity. Target aim assist, like I said, when you're practicing against bots, I'd highly recommend having it off so you can get used to playing with no aim assist or losing aim assist, and it'll help you a lot in your gunfights. But whenever you're playing anything serious, definitely keep this on. Again, if you have this motion sensor already set to off, you don't need to worry about any of these settings, but I've seen a lot of videos where people are like, hey, this FOV sensitivity scaling, turn it off, turn it off. It's not real. Don't worry about it. Now that we're in the movement tab, I do have my sprint assist set to on with sprint assist delay set to 0. And then mantle assist, crouch assist, both off. Corner slice, I really enjoy corner slice. It just gives me more dope when I'm challenging around angles. So I have it on, but it really does not cause any difference between your aim or how you look on the enemy screen when you're peeking an angle. So you could turn this off. Wall jump assist and combat roll assist, make sure these are both off. If you did have one of these on for wall assist jump, you could have it set to forward only. Therefore, when you're pushing your left stick forward towards a wall, you will literally bounce off of it the second you hit jump, which it just makes you have less control over your jumps. So me personally, I like control. I have this set off, but there's some people that they prefer having this on just for a little bit more smoother movement. The combat roll, just keep this off. Now, I've built the muscle memory to play on hybrid, so I'm gonna stay on it. However, diving in this game feels pretty useless, so you could just stick with tap to slide. Sprint restore, slide, maintain sprint, both on. Parachute, I have set to off. Wingsuit, manual, wall jump, press, and then your slide/combat roll behavior, have this set tap to slide, because when you jump off of a building, if you just click your slide button, you'll slide and you won't roll. If you do decide to roll, make sure you're in first person, because as you're rolling, you can fix your aim onto the opponent. So the second you get out of that roll, you can then kill them. And then when we click on movement advanced settings, I highly recommend turning off grounded mantle and then having tactical sprint activation set to single tap run. This is important if you run the tactical sprint perk, because every time you want to do your double sprint and go as fast as possible, you only need to click your sprint button once. Plunging underwater should be free, and then sprinting door bash, make sure that's on. Last but not least, we have this combat tab. I personally have the armor plate behavior set to apply 1. That's mostly for Warzone. But when we scroll down to combat advanced settings, this is where I actually play on tap to interact. The reason why is because whenever I need to pick up a weapon because I ran out of ammo, I just need to press square once, I have it picked up, and I can instantly start shooting the enemy. If I need to go up a zip line, open a door, I just press this button once and it does it. If I ever need to reload, I just hold square to reload, which most of the time you should be positioning yourself in a safe position to be able to reload. If you do find yourself mounting, make sure you have your exit set to instant, just so when you click get off of it, you're instantly off of it. Mantle cancels reload. I do have this set to off, just because if I'm reloading on purpose and I am jumping over a couch or something, I want to make sure that reload finishes. And then as we scroll down, weapon mount movement, I do recommend having this set to on. This is mostly a setting again for Warzone, but basically when you're mounting, you can now strafe left and right, just like you were able to in Vanguard. In your overlay advanced settings, make sure your ping wheel delay is set to off and your double tap ping delay is set to off. Just so the second you click ping, it is pinging. Those are all the in-game settings, but I do have some NVIDIA global settings I'd like to go over, so let's go do that now. We're back on the desktop, so we can change some of our NVIDIA global settings. So you're gonna right-click on your desktop, go to show more options, and then click on NVIDIA control panel. Once you're in here, go ahead and make sure use the advanced 3D image settings are set to on, and then you can go to manage 3D settings. Now you can mess with these settings, but there's 4 specific settings I'd highly recommend to have on or off, and that would be low latency mode. Make sure this is set to on. And if you scroll down, you're gonna make sure power management mode is set to prefer maximum performance. And as we continue to scroll down, I would highly recommend to turn off vertical sync. And then for threaded optimization, make sure this is set to on. Those were all my settings, and now here is the gameplay using these settings. And as we go over this gameplay, I'd love to share with you my goals for the next year, what I have planned for my YouTube channel, coaching, and my Discord. The first one I want to talk about is my YouTube channel. I do plan to try and make weekly uploads, and with these weekly uploads, these videos are going to be long. I mean, this video right here already should be around 30 to 60 minutes long. The reason why I'm doing this is because based off of YouTube trends and my YouTube analytics, it shows that longer styled videos tend to do well and they get pushed out more by YouTube. Therefore, I'm going to make this change. Now, I'm not gonna make it super boring where I have 3 gameplays and you just watch those. I am going to actually have a script going over everything I think you need to get better at this game, and it's gonna go in depth. For those of you that don't know, I've been a full-time Call of Duty coach for the last 4 years. I've coached over 1,000 people to iridescent. I've helped several teams win LAN tournaments, and I've also coached Scump, Hunter TV, Xpill, Hardest Pro, FaZe Testament, and I've worked with some of the biggest names in the industry. And for this year, I really want to take all of the info I have about this game and give it to you guys for free on YouTube. Every year, one of my most popular videos is going over spawns and how they work in Black Ops 7, and I typically teach you how to learn the spawns, and I give you a few examples for some maps. This year, it's different though. If I'm planning an hour-long video, the hour-long video will focus on every single map, every single spawn, how they work, why they work, and more. We are going to literally help you guys understand this game at a high professional level, and it will help you guys get better. Now, one problem I always see that players face when they're trying to get better at Call of Duty is they don't have enough time or their reps aren't high quality. So that's where my Discord and coaching come into play. For my Discord, I have 3 tiers that you can subscribe to, starting at $10 all the way up to $30. And the whole point is you can use these infographics as flashcards and you can force yourself to learn these spawns and learn these strats. Of course, you could also have these infographics on a second monitor or on your phone so you can have a reference while you're playing. But basically, this gives you the ideal situations, setups, breaks, spawns, timings, and more, all here in one place. Sharing an example with you, if you're the main AR for your team and you're playing as an Overwatch, you would want to pay attention to this AR player here. So you can take this route and follow this line and get into this position. You'll then learn that you'll find gunfights over here towards the train and at their top train and their top catwalk. Eventually, what will happen is once your SMGs push up to A, you can then back up to the staircase head glitch and watch your pinch from Zig. After you're watching your pinch from Zig, if the enemies are committing to B and we now need to retake B, you would then follow this line, look for another kill, and then you would start slowly pushing up and coordinate with your team to break from all 4 directions. And again, we have this all explained here in the bottom left. And again, I need you to realize that this is a reference. So when you are taking this route towards top cat, maybe you end up dying because you're mantling over the barrier and this player is able to instantly shoot you and kill you.
So if that is an issue you're running into, you would adapt and realize that you can just go around over here towards their staircase and then go top cat to challenge. And then after some time, maybe you instantly get pinched and you die and you realize that you didn't pick up your pinch fast enough. So then next time you fix your timing. And then next time you realize that you decide to start running over here and then the enemy peeks and kills you out in the open. Therefore, you're gonna make sure that you're playing behind cover, maybe throwing your grenade over there to make sure it's safe for you to push up. And this is literally the process to getting better and working on your gameplay. Basically, I'm showing you how you can start thinking like a pro player within seconds. Now, if you don't know how to rewatch your own gameplay or you struggle with finding solutions to your mistakes, this is where now we can work on one-on-one coaching. Now, in the one-on-one coaching session, we would review your gameplay and find solutions to these mistakes, and we would also apply these solutions live in game. We would load up a ranked play match, public match, or at least a private match and start practicing these solutions so you can start building up that muscle memory and getting better at the game. And we can also run 1v1 so we can practice our gunfights. But there's a clear point that I want to make, and that's understand I designed my coaching to give you everything you need to get better on your own, and you'll never need a coach ever again. I will literally teach you how to learn spawns on your own, how to create strategies on your own. What are the fundamentals to the game? And with all of this, you just need to put in quality work over time and you will enjoy the fruits of your labor of playing like a pro player. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you guys ever need anything and I'm always happy to help. Other than that, see you guys until the next video. So thank you so much and peace.